Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into the story of Isaac's birth.
Oh, this is a good one.
It is, but we're not just skimming the surface here.
Right.
We're really going to unpack this. We're looking at a sermon called The Birth of Isaac, Faith, Joy, and God's Perfect Timing. And what's interesting is
Mm-hmm.
this isn't just some nice little Bible story. It's about, really holding on to faith when things feel impossible,
Yeah.
discovering joy in unexpected places, and that whole idea that sometimes
Mm.
the greatest blessings, they come after a long wait.
Yeah, that's right. You hit the nail on the head. This deep dive really gets into that human need for hope,
Yeah.
especially when you're facing these big, huge challenges. And this story, it's like the ultimate example of God's faithfulness shining through,
Oh, for sure.
even when you're surrounded by doubt.
So the sermon, it jumps right in. It focuses on God's promise to Abraham and Sarah that they'd have a son. Sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But the real story's in the waiting.
Oh, yeah.
They waited 25 years for this promise to actually happen.
25 years. And it wasn't a case of better late than never either.
Yeah.
We're talking Abraham was 100 years old
Wow.
and Sarah was 90 when Isaac was finally born. Can you imagine?
It blows my mind, to wait that long for something you've longed for so deeply.
Absolutely. I think that's where the idea of God's faithfulness really comes into play,
Yeah.
even when we start to doubt
Yeah.
or question his timing. Because his timeline,
Right.
it often doesn't line up with our own.
No, it really doesn't.
And that could be a tough thing to accept.
It makes you think about all those times you're, praying for something and you just get impatient
Oh, yeah.
and you're just like, come on, God, where are you?
We've all been there.
Right. But then this story, it's like a reminder that God is working
He is
even when we don't see it.
behind the scenes.
Yes. And speaking of not seeing what's happening, you know what I find fascinating?
What's that?
Sarah's reaction, her initial reaction. After all that waiting, when she finally hears she's going to have a child,
Yeah.
she laughs.
She laughs. Well, I mean,
It seemed too good to be true.
wouldn't you think about it?
Yeah.
To wait all those years
It's so long.
for it to feel impossible. And then at 90 years old,
90.
to be told you're going to have a baby.
It's wild.
It just shows you how our human minds can't even grasp
Right.
the hugeness of God's power.
So true.
It's just beyond us.
So if Sarah's first response was this laughter
Oh.
born out of disbelief,
Yeah.
how does the sermon explain that later on that laughter turns into this
It's-
pure joy and awe? It's a huge shift.
It is. It is. But the sermon, it really emphasizes how her laughter changed
Okay.
from doubt
Right.
to just pure amazement. Just think about that shift
Yeah.
from not believing
Yeah.
to being completely blown away by what God can do.
It's like she went from this can't be happening
Right.
to this is more than I could have ever imagined.
Exactly. And that change, that's something I think we can all relate to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like that moment when we let go of our limited understanding
Hmm.
and just embrace the endless possibilities of what God has planned.
And that takes us to Isaac's name,
Okay.
which literally means he laughs.
I love that.
It's super symbolic, right?
Oh, yeah,
It's
oh, yeah.
like a nod to all that joy surrounding his birth.
Such a beautiful detail. And it's not just a coincidence either.
No.
The sermon explains that Abraham actually named him Isaac because God told him to.
Wow.
It shows you that even names in the Bible,
Right.
they have deep meaning,
Yeah.
a really purpose behind them.
It feels like every little piece of this story,
Yeah,
it's layered with meaning, like we're supposed to dig deeper.
absolutely. And the sermon, it doesn't just tell the story.
Right.
It asks us a question. How do we react when we experience God's blessings?
Ooh, good question.
Do we just go about our day? Or do we, like Sarah, stop and celebrate
Oh, yeah.
and share that joy with others?
I think it's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life
Oh, totally.
and forget to acknowledge the blessings we do have.
Mhm.
But Sarah's reaction, it's a great reminder to be louder about our gratitude,
Yeah.
to share our testimonies of God's goodness and inspire others with our experiences.
It's like recognizing that our little stories of faith, those blessings,
Yeah,
they're all part of something bigger.
right.
They connect us to something beyond ourselves.
I like that.
And when we share them, it can create this ripple effect
That is true.
of hope and encouragement.
Our stories can really lift people up
They can.
and remind them that even when things are hard,
Yeah.
God is still working,
He is always working.
even when we don't see it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the heart of this story, this idea of God's perfect timing.
Hmm.
We may want things to happen on our own schedule,
Oh, we do.
but Isaac's birth, it's a great reminder that God's plan,
Yeah.
it often unfolds in ways we don't expect.
Right.
And on a timeline, that's all his own.
So how does the sermon connect this idea of God's timing to Isaac being born specifically?
Well, it suggests that, wait, those 25 years, it wasn't just a random delay.
Okay.
It was a time of preparation,
Interesting.
both for Abraham and Sarah, and for the world that Isaac would be born into.
We'll have to explore that more in the next part of this deep dive.
We will. You know, it's so interesting how the sermon goes into those 25 years of waiting.
Yeah.
It wasn't like wasted time.
Right.
It was almost like a crucible,
Oh, okay.
forging their faith.
Right.
You know, really testing their trust in God's promise.
That makes sense. It's not just about waiting, but what's happening while they're waiting.
Exactly.
It seems like those years, they were crucial
Oh, yeah.
for them to grow spiritually, to really lean on God, even
Yeah.
when they couldn't see where they were going.
That's it. The sermon even says that without those years,
Yeah.
their faith wouldn't have been as strong,
Wow.
and they wouldn't have been ready for the blessing that was coming.
I can relate to that. I've definitely had times where it felt like I was just stuck,
Oh, yeah.
waiting for something to change. But
Mhm.
looking back,
Yeah.
those were the times I grew the most.
Right.
And my faith got deeper.
It's like those tough times, they get you prepared for what's next.
They really do. We don't like those waiting periods.
No, we don't.
But they can change us so much.
They're transformative, yeah.
The sermon also talks about how God's timing, it has this ripple effect. It's not just about the people involved, but
Yeah.
about the impact it has on everyone around them. So what about Isaac?
Yeah.
How did his birth impact others? What was the ripple?
Well, Isaac's birth, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
Proof that God can do anything, the impossible.
Right.
Imagine knowing Abraham and Sarah,
Yeah.
seeing them wait all those years, and then they have a child in their old age.
That would have given people so much hope.
And would have. A real, tangible sign that with God, nothing is impossible.
It's like this chain reaction
Yes.
of faith and inspiration.
From one impossible event.
Exactly. And that leads us to another point the sermon makes.
Okay.
Celebrating God's faithfulness. It's one thing to just like quietly acknowledge God's blessings,
Yeah.
but the sermon, it challenges us to really celebrate them,
Oh, okay.
to share them with everyone.
Well, like Sarah did.
Yeah. She said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me.
She didn't keep it to herself.
No way.
She told everyone, invited them to celebrate with her.
It shows us that joy, it multiplies when you share it.
So true.
And think about the impact of our stories.
Yeah.
When we share how faithful God has been,
Mm-hmm.
we're encouraging others to trust his promises
Right.
and find hope even when things are tough.
It's like we're each adding our own little thread
I love that.
to this big tapestry of faith, right?
Beautiful, yes.
Each one a testament to God's power,
Mhm.
woven together into something amazing and lasting.
And that ties back into God's perfect timing, you know?
When we celebrate,
Yeah,
we're not just saying thank you,
Yeah.
we're becoming part of a bigger story,
right.
contributing to this chain reaction
Yeah.
of hope and inspiration that can last for generations.
It's like our stories become a legacy,
Yes.
a testament to God's love and faithfulness
Look,
that goes beyond time.
that's why this story of Isaac,
Yeah.
it still speaks to people today.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even when something seems impossible,
Right.
God's at work,
He is.
creating this beautiful tapestry
Yes.
of hope, faith, and joy. It's like an invitation
No, I like that.
to be amazed by how his plans unfold,
Mm-hmm.
to find joy even in the journey,
Right.
and to share our stories of gratitude with the world.
It's a reminder that we're all connected, you know,
We are.
by faith, by hope, by these shared experiences.
The sermon focuses a lot on Abraham and Sarah,
Yeah.
but there's another perspective we haven't really looked at.
And that is
Isaac's.
Isaac. What was it like for him? Growing up knowing he was this miracle child.
Imagine
I know, right?
born after his parents waited for
Or
decades
prayed.
and prayed.
Or what would that be like?
That's a great question. It adds this whole other layer to the story.
It does.
Think about the expectations, the
Mhm.
feeling of destiny he might have felt.
Yeah.
We always focus on the parents, but
Right.
what about the child?
It makes you wonder
It does.
how that impacted his life,
Mm-hmm.
his faith.
Knowing he was a miracle shape how he saw God,
Yeah.
did it change the choices he made?
Those are great questions.
It makes us think about those ripple effects, not
Yeah.
just in the community,
Mhm.
but in families,
Right.
across generations.
It's like Isaac. just by existing,
Yeah,
carried this weight,
he
this
did.
purpose tied to how he was born.
And it brings us back to the heart of this deep dive.
Uh,
That even in these big Bible stories, their individual lives,
Right.
each with their own experiences,
Yeah.
all woven together into this amazing tapestry
I love that.
of faith, history, and human experience.
It's a reminder that behind every miracle, every story of faith,
Yeah.
there are real people
There are
with real feelings.
and struggles figuring out their own journeys.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I think we need to hold on to that.
Yeah.
These Bible stories, they're not just ancient tales.
Right.
They're reflections of what it means to be human, full of struggles we can relate to, victories, moments of grace.
They give us these glimpses into the lives of people who came before us.
They do.
We can connect with their experiences,
Yeah.
learn from them,
Absolutely.
be inspired by them.
So as we move to the last part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's keep those individual stories in mind, those
Right.
hidden layers,
Mm-hmm.
and let them help us appreciate how rich and complex the Bible really is.
It's amazing. It's wild how a story like this
Yeah.
about Isaac being born, something that happened so long ago.
It can still mean so much to us today.
I know, right?
It reminds us that we're all connected.
We are.
By faith, by hope, by these experiences we all share.
It all comes back to those big ideas we've been talking about, right?
Right.
Faith being rewarded,
Mm-hmm.
finding joy in God's plan, even when it's not what we expect,
Right.
and that power of celebrating God's faithfulness.
It's all woven together so beautifully in this story.
It really is.
It makes you want to hold on to hope.
Oh, yeah.
Even when things seem impossible,
Absolutely.
trust in God's timing
Mhm.
and find joy, even when the road is long.
It makes you think about those times when you're waiting for something big,
It does.
praying for that breakthrough,
Yeah.
wondering if God even hears you.
And this story, it tells us he does.
He does. And when those blessings finally come,
Yeah.
those prayers are answered.
It's not just about us, is it?
It's not. It's a chance to share that joy,
To inspire others.
to be that light in
Yeah.
a world that can feel pretty dark.
We're called to be those beacons of hope.
We are. Sharing God's love and grace with everyone.
And Isaac's story gives us the perfect example of how to do that.
It shows us that our stories, those moments of gratitude,
Yeah.
they're not just for us.
Right.
They can lift other people up,
They can.
create this wave of hope and joy that goes way beyond our own lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Isaac's birth,
Yeah.
what's one thing you hope listeners take away from all this?
I'd say the most important thing is to never forget God's faithfulness.
That's good.
No matter what you're going through, no matter how long you've been waiting,
Yeah,
He's always there.
he is.
His timing is perfect.
It is.
And His plan for you,
Yeah.
it's always good.
Even when we don't understand it?
Even then, there's always hope,
Yes.
joy, and a chance for amazing blessings.
For anyone out there who's in that season of waiting right now,
I'm talking to you.
remember Abraham and Sarah?
They waited so long,
They did.
but God came through.
He did. He hears our prayers.
He does.
And his promises, they're real.
Hold on to hope.
Yes.
Find the joy in this moment.
Yeah.
Trust that in God's time,
His perfect time.
you'll do more than you can even imagine.
I love that. And when those blessings do come,
Yeah.
don't keep them to yourself.
That's all, everyone.
Let your joy be a light for others.
Let your gratitude show everyone how amazing God is.
Thank you for being with us on this deep dive into Isaac's birth.
It's been a good one.
It has. It's been a journey of faith, hope, and inspiration.
It has.
Remember, even when something seems impossible,
Yeah.
there's always a reason to believe in miracles and the boundless love of God.